Hi, Susan.
Welcome. Welcome to the Unity in Marin Prayer Chaplain service. We are honored to have Melanie Carter be our guest speaker this evening. And Melanie has been a prayer chaplain since 2002, our first prayer chaplain circle. And she continues to hold us in prayer. Arthur Javier is our music this evening. Arthur has been touring for over a decade to all the continents. We will have meditation and hands-on silent prayer during the meditation after the talk. If you would like if you would like the we are getting it together here. So we are welcoming Melanie Carter and Arthur Javier. Melanie will be speaking this evening. After Melanie's talk, we will have a meditation. And if you would like silent hands-on prayer with a prayer chaplain, just raise your hand and a prayer chaplain will come behind you and hold you in prayer. After the meditation and the silent hands-on prayer, we will have an offering opportunity. We will pass the baskets. We also have our prayer basket here. And if you want to put a prayer request in the prayer box, it will be held for 60 days in prayer, in confidence. And so we start in prayer. As I breathe and I open, I invite you to breathe with me, to receive guidance into our hearts, knowing that the presence is with us, as us, around us, in us, always. As we breathe, we receive peace. We receive peace. We are divine love. And we pray in proxy of all those around the world who are not able to pray. We pray for the entire planet. And we send our love out into the universe, knowing that it returns to us tenfold. We are grateful for answered prayer. We are grateful for this teaching. We are grateful for this time. And so it is. Amen.
You want to play? you. Thank you, Arthur. That was so beautiful. It was inspirational. In the very first song, My Life is Yours, I think of my life as God's life. And I have had a very interesting life, and I'm enjoying my later years, but my life was spared so many times that I know it was for here and for now, for what I'm able to do in this time. And we're doing a little something different. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story that informed my healing journey through cancer and some other things. I faced death on a number of occasions in strange places, and I'd like to tell you the story of this journey. In 1973 and 4, my husband and I took a 14,000-mile, year-long trip in our Ford cab-over camper. We had a 64 Ford cab-over camper, and we traveled all through Mexico and Guatemala. We saw the big cities, and we saw the countryside. We met a lot of nice people, and we explored the cities, and we went to museums. But this particular story is about a place that we went to south of Veracruz, which is down on the coast of Mexico. We had done the colonial buildings to the hilt and were ready for something else, so we looked in the guidebook, and there was a zoo just south of Veracruz, about 8 miles. And we said, well, why don't we do that? So over coffee, morning breakfast, and just enjoying the ambiance of this beautiful colonial city with its bright yellow buildings and white trim, with the Australian sailors sitting down the way from us, very cosmopolitan. We got in our truck and we drove south looking for the Jardín Zoológico. It was a garden of natural beauty. So we drove along looking for the sign and saw nothing really until this one little white sign gave us directions to a long brown picket fence, unpainted, unfinished. So we pulled in the dirt parking lot, and there behind a wooden gate stood a ranger, and he was greeting us, and we said, "Is this the zoo?" He said, "Yes, this is the zoo. You've come to the right place." So I looked around and I said, "But where are the cages?" And he said, "Oh, no hay, señora." We were speaking Spanish. "There are no cages." And I said, "But where are the animals?" He said, "Well, they're just roaming freely in this jungle area." It was a sparse jungle, and it was greener than it had been because the rains hadn't come that year, and it was a beautiful day in April. So we proceeded to pay our 64 cents, and knowing that we wouldn't be out much for that. And my husband wanted to see the animals, and I wanted to see the Olmec heads, these huge stone helmeted heads of probably the previous rulers of the Olmec people that were all lined up in the left side of the zoo, and the right side of the zoo was where the animals were. So I took off this way, and Bernie took off this way. I saw the heads, and then he said that the keeper said, that the trail would lead back to the zoo so I could walk around the heads and see them and then go back to the zoo. He had also said that if we were concerned about any animals that we might run into, that we needn't worry, because if there were any, they were someone's pet released back to the wild. So I took off walking, and I just was so relaxed because it was a beautiful spring day. That it was gentle breezes, and the sounds of the jungle were super. And I went along, and all of a sudden, a fern beside me exploded with this little white, boxy, dog-like critter with quills. Hi. And it was a capybara, which is a rodent that lives there in the jungle. And so I was kind of surprised, but I said, well, this is the jungle, isn't it, anyway? And I went on walking and saw a coatimundi coming home from her night rounds, probably hunting for her babies. A coatimundi is a long, kind of raccoon-looking critter with a stripy tail and a pointed nose. And then I came to a clearing, and there was a beautiful big gray rock that I thought, I'll sit here and I'll just take all this in. I was feeling like I'm an animal. I could live here. I am living here right now. So I went over and I sat down on this gray rock, and it was soft. And I jumped up quickly and backed away and realized that it was a tapir, a big elephant-type critter with a short snout resting in the shade. So, yes, this was a jungle. It was quite alive. And the birds were just gorgeous and glorious. And I'm just getting into this. I'm just getting sort of flowy and moving through this beautiful space. And I come upon, I hear a tinkling sound of water flowing, and I come upon a pond. And the springs were bubbling. The keeper had said that there hadn't been much rain, but now there was. And so I stood kind of watching through the dappled light at the pond, and then on the other side of the pond, I saw one yellow eye, a very large eye staring at me. And then about 5 feet away from the eye, I saw a flick of what seemed to be a tail. And I got that they were related. Because then I saw the other eye, rather wide-spaced from the other eye. And then I looked through the leaves and saw that this creature was massive, spotted, the dappled fur camouflaging in the leaves. And my thought was, well, here's a beautiful creature that somebody used to have as a pet, released it back to the wild when it was just too big to take care of. And I began to talk to it in my mind and tell it, you are so beautiful. You are just gorgeous. Thank you for letting me see you. Thank you. I was thrilled. I was transfixed. Literally, I had no thoughts. And we stood there looking at each other for the longest time. I don't know how long it was, until the creature suddenly moved and then took a drink and then walked away. And I was kind of jolted out of my reverie and I came to myself and said, "Oh, my husband must still be waiting for me and he must wonder where I am. I have to get back to him right away." And I ran so fast. It took me 5 minutes to get back, and I was breathless when I reached the gate. My husband was there waiting for me, and he says, "Where have you been?" I said, "Well, I had an experience." And it was really something. I saw, in Spanish, I was saying, "Lo veo el tigre grande," to the keeper, and I was telling Bernie, I saw this giant jaguar, and it had a notch in its ear and a scar on its shoulder and other scars on its body, other places. And the keeper looks at me and says, "Oh, no, senor, you couldn't have." But I saw it. Lo veo, I saw it. When I described it to him, he said, "Oh," he was somewhat chagrined, "the old injured one, el mojo viejo." And he started to close up his stand and say, "You must go now. You have to leave. The zoo is closed. Está cerrada." I mean, he was very nervous. I guess he didn't want any American tourists to be eaten in their Parque Nacional. So my husband and I kind of walked over to the car and sat in the car for a few minutes. And I said, it happened. I described him. And the keeper hadn't seen, no one had seen this animal for 30 years. And they get that old. So this was literally the old injured one. And he'd come down for water and game because there was no water in the mountains then. And he'd probably had his breakfast. That capybara that ran across my path is his favorite food. So I think that what this did for me while I was going through cancer treatment, and Wendy described her journey last month, this was one of the episodes in my life, one of the experiences that gave me the confidence to go through this, facing death as I was, with a diagnosis of a stage 4 cancer, with very little fear. The attitude that I had taken, that I could face death with no fear, and allow myself to just be, informed my healing journey and brought me here because I figured I'd been spared for a reason. I have more work to do. That's one of the lessons that I took from it. And on this journey of 14,000 miles, I had 3 other encounters with death. not counting the cliffhanger where our truck had a tire off the road, hanging off the road, and we had to get towed. But I wanted to share this with you tonight, that your prayerful attitude, no matter what you're facing, will carry you through. And I am so grateful to have this community and to be able to just know that I'm safe. So I hope that that's long enough. I'd give you a chance to ask questions if you'd like. Yes.
Where, in what country did this occur?
So Melanie, you'll need to repeat the questions for the live stream into the microphone.
To repeat the question, okay. What country was this? This was Guatemala. It was at the ruins that are actually up in Palenque, which is a very fine ruins. The zoo was part of the Parque Nacional of Guatemala.
Testimony. I find it interesting that you should say that. I lost my mother in September 2010, acute leukemia. I lost my father in October 2017, smoke inhalation and pneumonia. Mm-hmm. And my father, he was born and raised in Scandinavia and Denmark. In 1965, my parents, they married in 1959. In 1965, my parents traveled to Denmark, and I have an older sister. She was 4 years old then, and I remember my mother was dying. My parents lived in Santa Rosa and Oakmont, and my father told me this story. We were sitting out in the backyard. He said, "You know what? Your mother and I, with Inger, my sister, we traveled to Denmark in 1965, and we were there for, I guess, a week." And then he said, we were packing, and your mother, she really didn't want to go. So I said, "So what'd you do, Dad?" And he said, "I told her," my father, he had a surprise for her. My mother was an artist. She wasn't famous, but she was an artist. And he said, we're not going straight home. And she said, "Where are we going?" He said, "You'll see." The plane, they've traveled from Copenhagen, Denmark to Spain. Bilbao, Spain. I've never been to Spain, but it's the city with many incredible museums. And my mother, they went to one museum. She went to one museum for 2 days when they were there.
I'm needing to interrupt you.
Please.
What's your name?
Lauritz.
Bartz?
Lauritz with an L.
Lars.
Lauritz. Laurits.
Lawrence.
It's Danish, yes, ma'am.
Well, I want to have time to give other people
Of
a
course.
chance to get to ask questions if you are close to the end of your story.
Yes, I am. The whole thing, the funny thing about this whole interaction, my mother, she was in museum or gallery, and my father would walk in with my little sister. He would say, "Let's go get lunch." You know, no. You two go on ahead. I'm busy here. And he said, "All right." And apparently, my sister and my father, they walked down the beach, and he got drenched, and my mother thought it was the funniest thing, but she didn't see it happen. I think it's funny that happened to my dad, because my father was he was a straight-laced man, and
Well, Lawrence,
I beg your
maybe
pardon.
we'll have another story time.
Okay.
This is a prayer service,
Of course, I beg your
and
pardon.
so I'll ask you to stop, but we can talk more afterwards.
Can you tell us about the other experiences where you faced death while you were on the 14,000-mile journey?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. Can I tell you about the other stories?
Yes.
Another time, because I don't want to take too much time, but they involve black panthers and runways that are 300 miles away from any city, and the Tikal jaguar god who came to visit us after we visited him.
Well, if that isn't a teaser to come back the next time Melanie speaks, I don't know what is. Are there any other questions?
Laura, talk into the mic, hon.
I was just intrigued by the animals you encountered in this zoo that I never heard of before. Are they natives of that part of Central South America?
They were all native to that part of South America.
So you described, I'm sorry, but I'm not remembering the names of the small animal was called a what?
The capybara,
Capybara. And that's the one that looked like a raccoon?
that it looks like a small dog with white quills,
Oh.
boxy, and the quadimundi is the raccoon.
And are these are animals that hopefully are still, they're not extinct yet or something like that. They're still living in.
They're still there. There aren't many jaguars left close to the cities. Mostly they're in the jungle, but they're still there.
Well, I'm really intrigued. I'd like to see pictures of these animals you're talking about.
Okay. I'll bring some next time.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, Nancy? Thank you all for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Melanie. That was lovely. And thank you, Arthur. Melanie is going to lead us into our meditation and silent hands-on prayer. And after the meditation, we'll have an opportunity for our love offering. And Arthur will play after Melanie does her lead in to our meditation.
Lead us into.
Thank you both
Okay.
so much.
Okay. So just settle in your chair and breathe the breath of God. Imagine that you are breathing the breath of God, that you think with the mind of God, that you love with the love that we identify as God, that is all around us. Allow yourself to be peaceful. Arthur will be singing to us.
God on high, hear my prayer. In my need, you have always been He is young, he's afraid. Let him rest, heaven bless. Bring him home, bring him home, bring him home. He's like a son I might have known, if God had granted me a son. The summers die one by one, how soon they fly, on, and I'm old and will be gone. Bring him peace, bring him joy. He is young, he is only a boy. You can take, you can give. Let him rest, let him live. If I die, let me die. Bring him home, bring him home, bring him home.
If you'd like hands-on prayer, raise your hand and a chaplain will come and gently place their hands on your shoulders and pray with you. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you. Just an instrumental. I want to thank Arthur Javier for his lovely contribution tonight. And Bonnie Abbey for spearheading these Wednesday evening chaplain services. It's been a pleasure being with you all. Bonnie's going to pray us out.
Thank you for your contribution, your love offering. Thank you for being here and creating this organic space of love. We're so grateful for the love that we are, the love that we share, the laughter and the beauty and the wisdom. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Melanie. And in closing, we are so very grateful. So we open again with our openness that has been here all along. And we rest in peace and in love, in beauty and in laughter, always. Unity in Marin is very blessed to have such beautiful people as Melanie and Arthur and all of you. So we are grateful for answered prayer. And so it is. Amen. Thank you.